Today we're talking about upgrades, Blu-rays and 4Ks. How do I go about it? It's a question that's come up quite a few times recently. And in the conversation, I just always had that mindset of upgrade your favorites first. If you don't own it and it's one of your favorites, go ahead and buy it. It's kind of that mentality, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the reason I want to talk about it today is because there are three movies here that I own, and they just recently got announced on 4K. Some are totally worth upgrading to 4K. Some of them are really fine for what they are. And a lot of times, your favorite YouTuber might get on here, get super excited, pumped. Oh, yeah, we're getting this movie on 4K. Super excited. And I know I have fallen into that trap and buying a movie where I'm like, what's all the hype about? This movie's fine, or this movie just kind of not for me. And that does happen all the time. There's a movie in here that just got a recent 4K announcement. I like it, but I'm a fan of 70s cinema, and not everybody is. And so if I was talking up this movie nonstop, and you're not a fan of 70s cinema, you buy it, that kind of trust goes out the window, and that has happened to me before. And before we dive into that, I just want to give a shout out to the newest channel member, Admiral Wackass. Thank you for being a channel member friend. And if you want to join the channel and become a channel member friend, you can do that for as little as $1.
I'd buy that for $1.
But we have a members only video coming to one of the higher tiers, and so we're trying to do that once a month where there's a members only video. We have some things going on in the background, but while we talk about that and show that off, the merch store is launching soon. I got a lot of the samples in. This is the very first one here. We got the 80s made mug. So this logo here, we're going to call it the Classic, and this is going to be on some shirts and hats, and this is the actual logo. I have some really cool things designed for Halloween. That second wave is coming in. Right here, this logo, that's going to be on the t-shirt tag on a lot of the t-shirts. Looking forward to this whole thing. But this is just a really cool 15-ounce mug. And if you don't drink coffee, sits on your desk, throw some pencils in it. I do it all the time myself. We have this here. This, just to give you an example, I think this is an 11-ounce mug. And I have it on the desk. I keep pencils in it. My Zelda letter opener there. I got from Imprint Films. During their Black Friday, they sent it to me. Really enjoy that, but this is not a coffee cup for me. I'm a bigger guy. I like to have a big cup of coffee, and this 15-ounce mug was just a nice compromise. It's the biggest style they have in the mug style, but we do have some tumblers and all that stuff available to us. But right now, this is what we're launching with. We're gonna probably have the site live this week. And I'm going to put up a couple examples of the stuff we have going on screen. I'm going to blur them out a little bit because I want it to be a nice surprise when we launch the store. This is the quality of the stuff that we're going to be getting, and this is what the site is going to kind of look like. But with that, let's dive into why we're here, and it is upgrades. So the very first thing is we have these three movies here. Am I going to upgrade them? Am I going to keep my Blu-rays? And it's a little bit more complicated than that. The very first one here is No Country for Old Men. It just recently got announced to get a Criterion release. And this is something that, do I need the movie? Do I love this movie? Is it something that I have to have the Criterion? I know not everybody cares about the more expensive packaging or the boutique labels. That is a conversation, but it also all depends on the type of movie. Like, I've had quite a few friends that are just kind of really against spending a little bit extra money and getting those premiere sets until they do. They end up finding a movie or two that really just hits home with them, that kind of nostalgia feel, or it's one of their all-time favorite movies, and that release just kind of opens the door to the boutique labels. I know I personally was in that same situation just a few years ago where I definitely wanted to get as many movies as possible, but spending like $30 or $40 or $50 on a movie that I'm like, I already have a copy. Why do I need that? It has kind of changed my mindset. Now, this one here, I don't watch it that often. Since I've owned it, I think I may have seen it twice, and I watched it when it first came out. So this is probably 3 times that I've watched this movie total, and I only picked this up at a used bookstore, so I never even paid full price for this movie. And it's something that it has a Criterion, which this is a movie that it really kind of deserves to be on Criterion. It kind of has that vibe and that feel. I know a lot of people absolutely love this film. Now, if this is something that I had paid full price for originally, and I had it in my collection, I don't hate the film. but I'm not a super fan of it either. Like, I don't know if it falls for me under those like overrated movies. I don't hate it at all. I think it's fine. Do I need that 4K criterion? And the answer is no. Now, I would get it if it was on sale or somebody gave it to me as a gift. Christmas is coming around, my birthday's coming around. You know, family members buy me movies all the time. So it's something that if it was given to me as a gift, I would gladly accept it. But the reality is, this movie, for me, I'm happy with the Blu-ray. I don't necessarily need that 4K, and it would have to really be a Price is Right kind of thing. And being a 4K Criterion, even at that 50% off sale price, you're looking at about $25. But that's also a weird, disingenuous price because on average, when they're not on sale, even though they have a $50 price tag on Barnes and Noble, I usually get the movies for about $35. Even $25, I don't know if it's for me. If I didn't have the movie at all, I would wait on the sale. And so that the $25 price range, the sale would probably be perfect for me. Or if, you know, you really want this movie, but you don't want to spend that kind of money, the Criterion's coming out. So there are people that are going to be taking their Blu-rays, trading them in, putting them on eBay, taking them to the used bookstores. So this movie's going to come around if it isn't already. But now the next two here, The Cell. This is something that I absolutely love. I just recently talked about it in a video that YouTube was not a big fan of because of the subject matter. They even sent me a little notification that it's not really friendly for advertisers and stuff, but I did an entire list on, and I'm going to put the word on the screen because they weren't a fan of me saying it, and that's what they said. But this movie here, The Cell, it's a great movie. Really enjoyed it. It's got some just elements of sci-fi, and there's Vince D'Onofrio, Jennifer Lopez, Vince Vaughn's in this movie, and this is something that it has that artsy vibe. This is definitely kind of an artsy movie with sci-fi rolled into, you know, just your good old-fashioned good guy, bad guy, cops and bad guys doing bad things kind of movie. And it's something that Arrow Video's putting this out. I'm going to get it day one. It's a movie I love. And, you know, I understand that there's all kinds of weird drama in the news about her, but I don't follow the news. I don't care about it. I only like movies. That's kind of what I'm into. So this right here, I'm going to be getting this day one. And it's a no-brainer. I've had this movie for a very long time. I can't remember what I paid for it, but it probably was like a day one purchase back in the day for me. So this movie was probably in that $20 price range, maybe 15, depending on when it came out. But I've had this movie for a number of years, and it's something that when I saw it back in like I think this came out in the late 90s, early 2000s. Whenever I saw this movie, I was just hooked. So this is going to be a day one purchase, but I also know that this is just that weird high-end sci-fi movie, very, very artsy, and it's something that's just not for everybody. The subject matter in this, like, there's a scene in it that's kind of horrific. So Vince D'Onofrio's character, he's a bad guy. He's taking women, he's taking them out, and he's doing it in kind of an awful way. And there's this whole scene where it's kind of not appropriate to talk about here on YouTube, but my wife actually got up, went to bed, and said that she's never watching this movie ever again, and she hated it. So she didn't even finish this movie. And so I understand it's not for everybody, but it is something that I've always enjoyed. The next one here, Sugarland Express, is getting a 4K. Now this right here, it totally makes sense. I don't necessarily know if I need the 4K. I thought the Blu-ray looked pretty good. I'm a huge fan of Goldie Hawn, and this isn't your typical Goldie Hawn movie. It's not a comedy. It has that kind of more serious subject matter. And this right here isn't for everybody either, and I understand that. So Goldie Hawn's character, she's got a kid, she's married, her husband's kind of in jail. They break him out, then they got to go try to get the kid. The kid was put in foster care because they're kind of unfit parents, and so they're trying to go get the kid back. And while they do that, they end up like kidnapping a police officer. They're going on a wild police chase. But it's a 70s cinema, and it has that kind of 70s cinema slow burn feel, and it also has that look. But Steven Spielberg directed this in his early 20s. I don't know if it was his first film, but this is something that I know that the two names sell this movie all the time. Steven Spielberg, Goldie Hawn. People are like, oh, I can't go wrong. But I don't know anybody in my real life that I've watched this with that actually kind of likes the movie. So I like it. I think it's great. But I understand that it's more of like a Saturday afternoon flick. It's probably a one and done for most people. And so for me, the upgrade on the 4K, it would really only be there if the price was right. A sale, 100%. If this movie was in the, $15 to $17 range, I might think about pulling the trigger, but I have the Blu-ray and I think it's just fine. So for the upgrade on this, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about it. The price has to be right for me. Not a day one purchase, but I do love the film. I think it's an excellent film, but I also know that it's not for everybody. And that type of movie, if you're into like slow burn 70s cinema, Goldie Hawn, maybe give it a shot. But I'm sure this is streaming somewhere on one of those free places like Tubi or Crackle or somewhere. This has to be available, especially since it is being put out on 4K. It's got to be available somewhere. Check it out first. If it's for you, go ahead and pick up that 4K. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody from picking up these new movies or upgrading, but I understand that as a YouTuber, as somebody that's just on here talking about movies, it's very easy to sway somebody into a movie.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
Because, maybe 10 years ago, if you were like, oh yeah, Goldie Hawn, Steven Spielberg, I'd have bought it, no questions asked. Now I'm like, hey, let me check the movie out first. And I have changed my mentality a little bit. I don't want to waste any money on that. And so the hype train thing, I'm kind of over it unless I already know what the movie's about. And so this one here, I do like it. And am I going to get the 4K? I think it has a potential to look really good on 4K, but for me, it has to be a price thing. If I didn't already own the film, I'd probably think about getting it because I'm a huge Goldie Hawn fan and I am trying to get all of her movies. But this is one that I don't need to upgrade day one. But as we talk about that, there are movies in my collection that if they did get announced, I would. And there's so many movies that I wouldn't. So the first two here, these movies, if they ever got announced, they had a 4K, I would get them day one, no questions asked. The first one being Fanboys. I saw this movie. If you haven't, it's just this kind of spoof. It's not really a spoof, but it's a comedy where these kids, their friend is dying. They have this lifelong journey where they're just huge Star Wars fans. And so they try to break into Lucas Ranch to get a advanced screening of episode 1, Phantom Menace. So I don't know if this movie came out around that time or after, but that's what this is about. And so it was just a really enjoyable movie. And as soon as I saw this, I ran to the store like that day to go buy this movie. It was so enjoyable. And it's one that I would upgrade in a heartbeat. The other one here is Demolition Man. Now, this is something that I've been watching since it came out in the 90s. I absolutely love it. I remember watching it on a Friday, and that weekend I probably watched it 3 or 4 times. By the time I went back to school and started talking about it on the bus, like everyone would just want to talk about football. And I remember that specifically about this movie where I'm just like, no, 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 let's talk about Demolition Man. This is the coolest thing in the world. And so this is something that from the time I was a kid, I absolutely loved this movie. And I've had it in my collection ever since. I've upgraded it always. And this would be a day one purchase on a 4K for me. I'm surprised we don't have a 4K yet, but that's where I'm at with that. So like there's two opposite ends of the spectrum, just this silly, goofy comedy and this really awesome action flick. So you have like the two opposite ends. Like it's not just really cut and dry for me. A lot of people go, why do we need comedies on 4K? One, I think it's about film preservation, not necessarily about the format. So I want to see every film put on 4K, but I personally wouldn't own every single film. So there's that mentality there. This one here, Nosferatu, absolutely love it. Would I upgrade the 4K? Probably not. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. And honestly, if I just had this on DVD, I think it would be even better because I would watch it on the old tube TV here. Because when you watch an old 4:3 image on a Blu-ray on a tube TV, it makes it even smaller because it's encoded to the 16:9 widescreen. So unfortunately, these older movies, you really only can enjoy them on a nice big high definition widescreen. You get the black bars on the sides, which is fine, but I have these old tube TVs, and so to watch these old 4:3 movies, I kind of prefer that a little better. It's also why I still collect VHS tapes because that's kind of fun. But this one here, if it ever got a 4K, no, probably not, unless it was like some part of some kind of big horror old monster movie box set. Other than that, I think this is perfectly fine with the Blu-ray. But this movie, I just picked it up the other day. I had the DVD. This was kind of expensive. It's out of print. It was more than I had wanted to spend on it, but it just wasn't available in my area, and so I grabbed it. But if this got a 4K tomorrow, even though I just picked up the Blu-ray, I'd pick it up. And we're talking about Cruel Intentions. This is just an excellent film. I love it. I know not everybody does. The Blu-ray looks really, really good. Would I get the 4K? Yes, because I love this film, and it would be a day one purchase for me. Chinatown. This is a movie that just got a 4K. I wasn't going to do the upgrade, but this is one of the ones that got damaged in my when I had the flood the other day, and I just recently talked about that in my last video. So it got water damage on here. I don't know if you can see that, but some water damage there. And so I wasn't going to get the 4K, but I can print a new cover, and a lot of people pointed that out, and I do know how to make custom covers, and I've done that. But this movie here, it got the 4K. It's just a kind of a weird, justifiable way of getting it. I didn't need it originally, but now I do because some silly cosmetic damage on the cover. So this one here, I will be upgrading, but it's $40 on Amazon right now. And is this worth $40 to me? I didn't think it was. I had it on Blu-ray. And so it's something that I will get, but I don't necessarily want to pay that $40 price tag. So it's one of those things. Now, if I didn't have the film, I probably would. And this is another one that I have the CED of this movie. So I have multiple copies of it, but having the Blu-ray, I just really enjoyed it. This is another movie that I love, but it's also a movie that I can't watch a lot because my youngest, and that's the reason it wasn't a day one purchase for me. We're talking about Training Day. Now, this is something that would love to have the 4K. I don't mind the price point on this one, but it's something that it doesn't get revisited all that often. So to justify spending a little bit extra money on a movie I already have to making time where I can watch it when my kid's either not around or sleeping, that's where this one never got upgraded. But it's something that I totally would. I absolutely love the film, and for me, it's worth it. It's just the reality is, how often does it get watched? And so that's just a little bit of mindset into how I think about the entire thing. But then I have these like cult classics, I guess guilty pleasure type movies. And again, these movies really aren't for everybody. But would I get them day one? Some yeah, some no. Like Blood and Chocolate. This is just a werewolf kind of movie. I guess like a, I don't know how to explain it, but this is kind of like a girl movie, but I like it. And this, if they got a 4K, I'd get it. Jennifer's Body, another guilty pleasure. It's dumb. I know people don't like this movie, but I kind of do, and I enjoy watching it every year. My wife makes fun of me for it. I'd pick this up on a 4K. Paul Blart Mall Cop. This is something that I love. It's a guilty pleasure movie. Would I pick it up on a 4K? Probably not. Like, this is something that I watch it all the time and I enjoy it. It's a comedy. Do we really need the 4K? And I think it should. I think it should get a 4K upgrade. I think all these movies should be preserved in that manner. But this is something that I would pick it up on a 4K if I found it used at the thrift store. And I find 4K movies used at the thrift store all the time. So this is where I'd pick that up, but it wouldn't be a day one purchase for me. But then this movie here, it's only on VHS. As far as I know, there's like a weird German DVD, but I can't tell if it's a legit DVD. And I think that it's like maybe a bootleg or a homebrew. So this is Tilt. This is an old Charles Durning, Brooke Shields, Ken Marshall movie. And it's just a pinball movie. It's something really simple, but it's something I love. It's on VHS. The couple VHS tapes that I've seen on eBay are in the couple $100 price range. I've never seen anything of this available, Laserdisc, no DVDs. So I don't know, how this was distributed or why it never got any other versions. But if this ever got a Blu-ray or a 4K, in a heartbeat, it'd be a day one purchase for me. Not an overall great film, but a fun Saturday afternoon film, and it's something I really enjoyed. The Police Academy set here, something that I got a couple years ago. I love the first one, but all these movies here, even if it had like a nice box set, it would kind of be a hard thing to upgrade because I really only love the first movie. We only even have this whole box set because my wife loves all of them. And number 7 is one that I don't even watch all that often. I think like in the past few years when she's watched it, I might have sat down once to watch it. Just not an overall need for me, but that first one, I absolutely love it. If that got put on a 4K all by itself, I would probably upgrade if I didn't have this box set and maybe I only had that one movie. So again, it really just kind of boils down to cost or how I feel about the movie. But this one here, something I picked up years ago on VHS for about 50 cents. It's a movie I never saw before, but the cover sold me 100%, and it's Blind Date. You got Bruce Willis, Kim Basinger, and this rom-com back in the 80s. And so you have like, they're not rom-coms like they are today, where they're like really for girls. This back in the day was really your date movie, and anybody can enjoy this. I really had a fun time watching this. And so once it got announced on Blu-ray, it was a day one purchase for me. But if I hadn't already seen it before, I might have missed this one. And I'm glad I didn't. And I'm also glad that I picked it up day one, because the price on it is, 60 to a couple $100 on eBay. It's just something that, would I pay that price now? No, I wouldn't. I would have kept my VHS and kind of been frustrated that I missed out on the Blu-ray. But this one here, if it got a 4K, I love it, but I think my Blu-ray is fine. So again, it would all boil down to price. But if I didn't have it at all, that 4K would be 100%. These two here, both of these movies, I love them. I watch them every single year. Killer Clowns, I might like a little more because it's that horror comedy, but this has definitely got that dark humor into it. But we're talking about American Werewolf in London and Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, both of these Blu-rays look amazing. Now, Killer Clowns, I'm pretty sure, is a new, what is it, a brand new 4K scan, from a restoration. So this Blu-ray has a great picture. So to justify double dipping, spending that extra money on this one, when this was a Region B movie, and it was more of the justification of me jumping into a region free player many years before before the 4K got put out here in America. So this right here, this Killer Clowns, I love it. I don't necessarily need the upgrade. Would I like it if I didn't have it? 100%. 100% if I didn't have this movie, it would have been a 4K no-brainer. But this Blu-ray looks absolutely amazing. There's no justification for me to double dip because it's a great movie and probably up there in my all-time favorite comedy horror movies, but really it's okay for the Blu-ray. If there was a good price on it or something happened, maybe I'd pick it up, but right now, very happy to have this. I did not need the 4K. And then we have American Werewolf in London. A great movie. I absolutely love it. If I didn't own it, 4K would have been a no-brainer. But this one here, the Blu-ray looks amazing. Now, this isn't from a 4K scan, but there was a new restoration done on this, so a nice high-definition restoration done back in 2019. This Blu-ray looks absolutely amazing, and I don't necessarily need the 4K. It's not one of my all-time favorite movies. It's really good, and it's up there. It probably makes my top 25 list, and not just horror. It probably makes my top 25 list of all movies altogether. So it's definitely up there for me, but it's not in my top 5. I didn't need it. I didn't need multiple versions of this. If I ever found a VHS, I'd pick it up day one, but this is a movie that I remember watching when I was a kid. It scared the hell out of me. I absolutely loved it, but I didn't even have it in my collection at all until just a few years ago. And so upgrading this, not for me. I think this is fine. Now, if this was like not a great transfer or there wasn't a new high definition restoration, then a 4K would have been a no-brainer. But this is just a good overall picture and something that it's really fine to have the Blu-ray. Now, these ones here I did recently upgrade, and they were in the pile of upgrades again before the flood happened, and I kind of had a change in my mentality, especially about upgrading my Blu-rays. But the very first one here is The Town. I upgraded that. The 4K is coming. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know. I haven't had any reviews on it, so I'm not sure if it was even worth it. But it's one of my all-time favorites. It was a newer shot movie. I'm assuming it's going to look amazing and might just be a small uptick, but I love this movie and I wanted to revisit it again. And before I revisited it, I wanted the 4K. Next one here, all these movies here pretty much are that same thing. I wanted to revisit them, and before I revisited them, I wanted the upgrade. So 4K Smokin' Aces is another one. The price point was perfect. It was like $10 or $13. So that's why this was never a day one for me, because I had the movie, but now at that price point, it's a movie I want to revisit. It's a no-brainer to upgrade. Natalie Wood, Gypsy. This is one I'm trying to collect all the Natalie Wood films. It's one I hadn't seen before. I picked it up used for $1, and I liked the film. So if I had just thought it was okay, it was whatever, then I would have just kept my DVD. But the fact that I love the film and trying to get all the Natalie Wood films, this was a no-brainer for the upgrade. And again, I thought the price point was pretty okay for it, being an older film, but you can't go wrong with Natalie Wood. And if you've never seen it, she's in that bikini in the movie. So big fan, and that's why I had to get that one. And this is one that there was a time in my life, like right after I graduated high school, I was living out on my own, and I had nobody to influence me on movies. Now, I had a roommate that was huge into movies, but he kind of had his own mindset about movies, and there was very little crossover. I think, like, out of all the movies that we ever really enjoyed together, it was a couple of the ones that we grew up with. You know, we're talking about like Goonies, Howard the Duck, things that I love. You know, there was a couple, crossover movies there, but then it was only like really at the time when we were living together, there was a few movies that we had crossover on. One of them was Boondock Saints. We found that movie together, thought it was super awesome. So there's just a very small amount of movies that we kind of really had a conversation about. So there was nobody to influence me about movies at that time in my life. And so I spent a lot of time going to the video rental store. And this is a movie that I had found around that time. And it's something that I just really enjoyed. And it's She's All That. It's just this silly rom-com, teens in high school. You got the ugly duckling story and trying to make her beautiful. Just a fun movie. Really enjoyed this one. And I wanted to revisit it, and having to go get the Blu-ray, it was a no-brainer for me because this one actually was the one that didn't fit on the shelf. So I have just enough space on my shelf for a certain amount of DVDs. And this was as I reorganized my movies, this one didn't make it to the shelf. It was on the floor, so I was like, gotta upgrade it. And that was kind of an insight on how I do my upgrade. On the 3 that were just announced, are you going to be upgrading? Did you have these movies in your collection already, or is it going to be a first-time purchase for you? Let me know in the comments down below. But with that, you're going to want to click on this right here. And with that, watch a movie today, and I'll catch you guys next time.